Good morning, mi gente. Welcome back to another episode of Behind the Apron. I'm your host, Kassy.
And I'm Manny.
And today we are back with a not so exciting, episode, or not so uplifting, but kind of more of a serious tone. I know these past couple of episodes we've been kind of just, kind of just shooting the shit, kind of telling you guys our stories. So before we jump into today's episode, I kind of want to give you guys a little update of what has happened since we recorded this podcast. We recorded this episode on March 30th, which was Sunday. It is now April 3rd, a Thursday, before we released the episode, and there has been new findings in the cause of death for Miller Gardner. So, Fox News reports officials in Costa Rica have confirmed the official cause of death of Miller Gardner, the 14-year-old son of former New York Yankees player Brett Gardner, who died under mysterious circumstances on March 21st while vacationing with his family. The initial investigation in the days that followed Miller's tragic passing focused on asphyxiation, which was later ruled out. The investigation then pivoted to food poisoning as a possible cause of death. But on Wednesday night, April 2nd, Costa Rican Judicial Investigative Agency Director Randall Zuniga said that the toxicology results confirmed that he died as a result of carbon monoxide poisoning. So, since we recorded this podcast, a lot has changed, and pretty drastically, I might add. So I figured I would just give you guys that little update. We will go deeper into an update on next week's episode. But before you go into listening to today's episode, I figured I would give you a little understanding as to why you may hear us talking and referencing food poisoning in the episode. But nonetheless, it's a great listen. It's super informative. And our goal as podcast hosts, me and Manny, is to give you guys as much information as we can and a perspective of what it is truly working, again, behind the apron and the importance of food safety, whether it's at home or if you're in the restaurant industry or whether you go out to eat with your family, just to kind of give you guys some things to look out for. So that being said, I hope you enjoyed today's episode. I hope you guys are having a great Friday, a great start to your weekend. If you are drinking any type of drink while listening to this episode, drop it in the comments because for the most part, I'm always just drinking coffee. But if you guys are drinking something stronger, I want to know. What is the vibe for today? But this week, Manny and I are bringing you guys a different kind of episode. I know these past few weeks we've been kind of giving you guys a look at what really happens in our personal stories. This week, we're going to be bringing you guys something unfortunate that has happened in a celebrity's life or
an athlete's life. They're now
an athlete's life. So if you guys haven't already heard, the former New York Yankee Brett Gardner and his family were on vacation in Costa Rica a few weeks ago, and his son, well, actually, they all kind of fell ill to what they thought was food poisoning, and unfortunately, his youngest son, at the age of 14, passed away to what they think could be related to food poisoning. So unfortunately, this is something that is very real and that maybe not a lot of people kind of talk about. I know that as part of being in the food service industry, and not just being a team member, but being a team lead, a manager, a corporate trainer, we are very well trained when it comes to how to handle potential cross-contamination, potential food safety issues, and I think that the U.S. does a very good job at implementing certain procedures and certain standards. Unfortunately, we don't have control over what other countries implement and don't implement. Upon a lot of research that Manny and I did for today's episode and kind of deep diving into what truly caused it, a little bit of the why behind the what, we will definitely share with you guys what we have found. And unfortunately, it's not all that great.
Yeah, it's pretty, I don't want to say harrowing, but as a parent, it can definitely be very a harrowing thing to hear.
So this episode, we will be doing a deep dive on not only the case and not only the little bits and pieces that we know that the family has chosen to share or the hotel and restaurant have chosen to share. We'll be covering kind of what our experiences are and have been in the food service industry and how serious we take food safety, and giving kind of our little 2 cents and our personal, like I said, experiences. So The family was vacationing in Costa Rica. They were staying at the resort Arenas del Mar Beachfront and Rainforest Resort. They, however, visited a local restaurant and at another resort called Le Papillon Restaurant at La Mariposa Hotel. The family dined there 3 days before the son's passing on March 18th. However, the day before his passing, they kind of all got sick. The Costa Rica's Judicial Investigation Agency has shared information about Miller's health in the hours leading up to his passing. So on March 20th, Brett, his wife Jessica, and his kids went to a restaurant outside of their hotel. They felt sick when they got home or got back to the hotel. So the agency's spokesperson, Juan Pablo Alvarado Garcia, told NBC News on March 25th that their medical team at their hotel treated all 4 of their family members. So it was the following morning when they found his body, and when they did, they noticed that he had a little bit of throw up in his mouth, and so they initially thought that he had passed away, maybe to asphyxiation and choking on his own throw up, but that was not the case in this situation. And so now I think they're left with just more concerns and questions as to why this all happened, and they're quickly trying to figure out, I guess, the results of the autopsy.
And like the full, like, I don't know, like you were saying, like the autopsy and the toxicology like report, which can unfortunately take months to get the results. So
Yeah.
we won't be receiving any news anytime soon, but at least we can break down everything that we know so far about the
From here until
case.
then. So now that they're thinking that Miller could have died due to the food, like the food poisoning, the medicine that they gave him, or an underlying cause, whether it was from the food that kind of triggered something in his body or the medicine that could have done the same. We don't know yet. We're hoping to find that out, but hopefully this family gets as many answers that they can as soon as possible. I cannot imagine. I mean, I only have one son and he's almost 2. I can't imagine like losing my baby at 14 years old. You know, they have an entire life to live. They're kind of figuring themselves out at that point. And then for them to be taken so soon, it must be very hard. So I truly do send my love and support and my prayers and my thoughts to the Gardner family, because I cannot imagine like how they must feel. To have their vacation kind of turned into this tragedy is very hard.
It definitely can be. It's like not. We go about our day just like, especially on vacation, we go about our day just trying to enjoy the most of it because, you know, that's what vacations are for. And then
To relax and unwind.
next thing you know, something like this can happen. And it's just.
Very unfortunate.
Mm-hmm.
So the family, or Brett, who played with the New York Yankees from 2008 to 2021, him and his wife shared their statement on the New York Yankees X page about their son. So it's kind of very sad. They did say that he passed away peacefully in his sleep, and I think that that's something that any parent could kind of just hope and wish for, that their babies pass
I can at least
suddenly,
put him
or
at peace, like knowing
yeah, that he
that
at least
that's
died
how.
peacefully. So since his passing, the restaurant has obviously made an official statement on their Instagram page, Le Papillon. Restaurant CR on Instagram made an official statement saying, which, with deep sadness, we extend our heartfelt condolences to the Gardner family for the passing of their beloved son, Miller Gardner, which occurred on the morning of Friday 21st, March 21st, 2025. Our thoughts and prayers are with them during this incredibly difficult time. Due to misinformation circulating on social media, we would like to clarify that the Gardner family dined at our restaurant, Le Papillon, on the afternoon of March 28th, Tuesday, 2025, 3 days before Miller's tragic passing. Any claims suggesting a link between our restaurant and this heartbreaking event are entirely false and unfounded. Any news, statements, or claims to the contrary did not reflect on the reality of the situation. Furthermore, we do not have any additional information, as the Gardner family did not stay at our hotel. Despite media inquiries, we will refrain from making further comments out of respect for the privacy of the Gardner family. We appreciate our community's understanding and respect, reaffirming our commitment to transparency and truthfulness. This was posted 5 days ago. And unfortunately, I think that any restaurant put in this position would kind of say the same thing. But I think it's kind of careless. Me personally, as an outsider looking in, but also as somebody in the food service industry with experience, I think and even as a parent, I think it's kind of very careless for them to go out and say
Prematurely state that like they basically have
there's no ties.
yeah, that they have nothing to do with like the passing. Like yeah, they're saying it's unfortunate and all that. They're saying, but like this doesn't fall on us like just because they ate here.
Yeah, and so the official statement on their Instagram says any claims suggesting a link between our restaurant and this heartbreaking event are entirely false and unfounded. You can't, like, at the end of the day, there's no found proof that has come back saying that they are completely freed from or off the hook from the situation. So I think it's kind of very careless, and I think very like shitty for them to say like that for sure, that they have nothing to do with it.
Yeah, I mean,
Like, as a parent, if I was put in that position, that's the last thing I want to fucking hear. That is the last absolute thing I would want to hear from the restaurant that could potentially have caused food poisoning for not only my son, but for my entire family and the unfortunate death of my son. I don't want you, take some accountability, like, or just leave that out.
or don't just say like express your condolences and just say, and yeah, like leave it at that. Like there was no need for them to jump the gun and say like we had nothing to do with this, because now
if they are found guilty,
God forbid, yeah, like they're found like, hey, like it was your food that either A, triggered
something,
like an allergic reaction, or B, caused like the
unfortunate
food poisoning. Like now, like what it like now not only do you look like pretty dumb, but now you're also like liable for a death.
So these are the facts that we know so far about the case. Keep in mind, we record this podcast a few days before we actually release it. So as of March 30th, all we know is that he died on the 21st of March. He ate at the restaurant where his family and him are believed to have gotten the food poisoning on March 18th. On the 25th, they have ruled out asphyxiation. And keep in mind, asphyxiation is basically lack of oxygen to the brain. And so they ruled that out on the 25th. On the 29th, Costa Rica's judicial investigation organization, that have just stated that they're not going to share any other information because they're still pending autopsy.
Don't speculate, because you don't know all the, like you said, you don't know all the facts. So why assume?
Else? Exactly. According to Alvarado Garcia, who was a spokesperson, I think, for the hotel, food samples from the local restaurant where the Gardner family did eat from Le Papillon have been taken in for testing and analysis. If the food is found to be a factor in Miller's death, then the eatery could potentially be prosecuted for its involvement. Like, that is absolutely shitty.
Yeah, and that's why, like, assuming that your food had nothing to do with it is kind of like very careless and like thing to do, because yeah, like now food is being taken from your restaurant to test, which again, like it could come back as clean or whatever, but I still feel like I was mentioning to you this before we even started recording, but I was mentioning that yeah, like they may come, like maybe the food that they took a sample of may come back clean, but if the autopsy report still says that it was the food they ingested, like they're still liable, because it's like I was mentioning to you before, like let's say hypothetically, obviously hypothetically, that the food they ate was mishandled and like and or cross contaminated, and now due to this news being broadcasted everywhere, they're like, oh shit, if this were to, like if this did happen here and we were the reason why, maybe that was the reason for them to like crack down on whatever may have been happening, and maybe the food could come back clean. But
at that
like
point,
I said, if the autopsy report from his death and his body prove otherwise, no matter how clean you got after the fact, it's still your fault.
Yeah. And so I think I actually went as far as researching their menu. And given the fact that they are in between North America and South America, they do have that Caribbean, I think, flair, where you see a lot of stuff that you would see in the DR or in Puerto Rico. You see plantains, skirt steak, you see I even had like Italian dishes. They also have a little bit of seafood like mussels, octopus. I think you teeter the line and you open yourself up for more unfortunate issues if you don't take care of your food properly when you introduce seafood like mussels and octopus, especially because mussels, I think, are a very kind of like dangerous
Meticulous.
if they're not held. I mean, obviously we don't know what he ate. I don't know what he ate, but just by looking at the menu online, they offer stuff as far as burgers, Italian food, steaks, some seafood, and then like some local, I think like surf and turf. And I think that when you are not careful when it comes to seafood, I think that opens up a very broad a very broad door for potential seafood poisoning. And I think that that is very high touristy place. It's like Costa Rica is considered a rainforest. Like people go there to vacation, like this family did. And I think that you have to be extra careful when it comes to food handling and food safety in a high touristy area. Wouldn't you think?
Absolutely, you do. I mean, you don't know, like you said, you don't know what their processes are for like handling that kind of food. And like you said, like the more items you add to a menu, the more.
For diversity
Yeah, I mean, the more stuff you add to a menu, the more chances you're giving yourself
or
to
risks.
mess up. Yeah, risk is a better word. The more risk you're taking and like cross contamination, like I know we're gonna go further into it, but just a quick example. Like I remember, like when I used to work at Cheddar's, like when they used to be cooked on the flat top, I would
Yeah,
always it would always be on the back of my head. It's like all it takes is like, granted, thank God my allergy is not like,
a severe.
yeah, like it's not like if I eat shrimp, like, oh, my airways are gonna close up and I'm gonna die. Like some people, like I just get irritated and I'm like my fingers get like
All you need to
swollen.
do is pop a Benadryl.
Like, but for someone who has like a severe like
Life threatening.
allergy, like all it takes is one small mishap of like, and I put the salmon too close to the shrimp. And I was like, okay, and like to you that's like oh shit, but like
Yeah.
for someone else, like, okay, now I'm dying because of your little oh shit.
Yeah. And I can confirm when I worked at Cheddar's, we definitely used different tongs, different like seasoning pans, different bowls when it came to handling
Oh
even
yes,
different
we're
spatulas.
they are very careful, but like I'm just giving like as an example of like that's all like I always when I see stuff like this, I always think, and I know this is very extreme, but it's just always a thing that pops into my head. Like the movie Contagion. I don't know if you guys have watched it. Spoiler, it's been out for multiple decades. But like long story short, like because of poor food handling, like an entire like disease outbreak like
Yeah,
breaks out into the world. It all started because like some guy didn't wash his hands, and there you
that's
go.
crazy.
Like it started an entire world epidemic. And the reason I think of it is because that's kind of exactly how like
COVID happened.
exactly like because the guy who brought it to the US was in a foreign
Alleged,
country.
because there's so many different like theories out there, but
No,
yes.
yeah, well, like someone traveled from
Yeah.
like a foreign country, came back, and boom.
Yeah. An entire pandemic shut
I
the
still
entire
can't
world
believe that
down.
happened.
Can you believe we're going to have to explain to Eddie one day that we survived a pandemic?
Yeah, that's gonna be one of his history lessons probably
I
one day.
know. We survived 9/11, the pandemic.
They're probably gonna tie
Jesus
that. They're
Christ.
probably gonna tie COVID into like the plague because it kind of was like a
Yeah.
like it was a world epidemic.
Yeah, unfortunately. But going back to, the food safety and, the unfortunate passing of Miller Gardner, I think a lot of the times team members are so careless in the sense that they think, oh, it could never happen here. Or like, don't worry, like the heat will kind of kill off any bacteria or any potential cross contamination. But there's so many different ways that food can be contaminated, from the improper storing from when it's first delivered into the restaurant, if they're not careful with it and they cross contaminate it there, or as far as like in plating, like if you cross contaminate or if something's not cooked right or not cooked fully through, then it's going to go out to the table and to the guests and they're going to eat it and it's unfortunately contaminated. And so not only can the restaurant be liable, but the owners and the potential food suppliers and processors involved can all be held liable for wrongful death of a person, and in this case a child. Like how like horrifying is that?
That is crazy. I didn't know. I didn't know that. how many people could be involved or like prosecuted or found guilty for something like that.
And I think
Yeah.
even as far as some of the employees can be held liable, because I saw another article from the bartender at this restaurant talking to either like the New York Post or some news source that he spoke to, saying that he was kind of scared that his employer or that his fellow coworkers were going to be put in jail because of this. And it's true, like imagine that your carelessness has caused the life of somebody else.
How would it fall? Wouldn't it fall more on the kitchen, not rather the team member? Because like when you're a front of house, how like
Yeah.
I mean I understand like the whole restaurant can be held liable, but like I feel like the not to like be rude, but wouldn't the back of house be who should be held liable since like they are the ones that like in
Yeah.
direct contact with the food and like preparing the food and doing everything like all that instead of
Yeah.
like the server who's just like sometimes like there are servers that like are kind of involved in the kitchen and they do try to help, but then there are other servers who are just your typical servers. They just pick up the food, take it to the table, and then
Yeah, they
do
don't
what
do
they got
as
to
much
do.
food handling. Of course,
Mm-hmm.
absolutely. And in this case, it's not just something that was cross contaminated, considering that the entire family got sick. It was probably it was probably a lot more than just using the wrong tongs to handle shrimp on a plate. This was probably a lot bigger, a bigger situation than just one unfortunate misuse of the improper tongs or whatever, considering the entire family got sick. Or if they all ate the same thing, then maybe, but I think I think there's a bigger situation or issue at hand considering that they were all sick. Do you get
Yeah,
me?
yeah. I mean, I agree. Yeah, it's definitely there's there's definitely a lot more to the story that we're gonna find out as the months come.
I
So
know. Hopefully it comes by pretty soon. But one thing that I did notice that I think was kind of jarring and alarming is that Costa Rica does not require any food handler certification to work in the food service industry. So, unlike the US, where most states, not all of them, most states require a food handler certification. And even in the states that it's not mandated statewide, a lot of the counties and a lot of the corporations or places of employment do require a food handler certification. So, instead of a food handler certification, in Costa Rica, they just emphasize on basic food safety training, unlike in the US where a food handler certification is required. As per Google, as of March 30th, which is today that we're recording, Colorado, Montana, Arkansas, Kansas, and West Virginia may not all have a statewide requirement for food handler certification, though some counties and employers may still require it. I think that is kind of very scary, and hopefully it's very eye-opening for Costa Rica, considering, like I said, it is a tourist spot, a travel destination. You would think that these resorts would do good by the people by at least having a certification and having the proper food hand. Like, you can't just trust that they're gonna do the trainings and you can't just have it by like word of mouth. Like, I think that at that point it's kind of negligence at that point. But
I mean, yeah, it definitely can be. It can, and now that you say negligence, that could very well like play a role if they are found like
guilty.
guilty or liable, because it is true. Like, I mean, and that's a sad reality of like I don't know if Costa Rica is a third world country, but like it doesn't have to be. Like, it's just a foreign country of the U.S. That's not like that is not. I don't want to say educated, but is not as concerned. That's a better word for that. I think we could use. Like, they're not as concerned with like the certifications, and they're kind of do go like by what you're saying. Like, they just go by the word of mouth of like, yeah, we're doing things right. Like we know that needs to be cooked a certain way, and that needs to be done a certain way, and that these things shouldn't mix and blah blah blah. But it's like I can tell you all these things, but like, am I doing it?
Yeah.
It's kind of like lying on a resume. Like, I can tell you, yeah, I know how to do all these things, but like,
At the end of the day,
am I gonna do them?
are you?
And
Yeah.
then they, unfortunately, the Gardner family paid the ultimate price for like kind of. I don't want to say because it shouldn't be said like we
It
shouldn't
shouldn't
word
be
it.
their price to pay.
Not even that. Like, it shouldn't be like a risk that you should be concerned about, because it's like just because you're not like on vacation on a foreign country, like, shouldn't
You would hope and think that these, especially it's not like some rinky dinky
back of like a
back of
random hole in the
hole in the
wall.
wall
Yeah,
restaurant. This is a resort. This is a restaurant, a local restaurant at a resort in Costa Rica. Like, you're not going in the middle of nowhere to some small town USA restaurant, local mom and pop. Like, this is a huge deal.
it definitely is. And I mean, like you said, I hope it opens the eyes of not only Costa Rica, but like any foreign country that doesn't require like
Food
food
safety
safety stuff,
handlers.
because it's very much true. Like, it can be something as small as, like you said, like food touching that's not supposed to be touching, or
Yeah.
something that's stored right, something not cooked right, like something that simple that can happen in the blink of an eye. Like, you can pull a steak off the oven too early,
Off the stove top,
or
off the
well,
flat
'cause
top
steak can be
or the
cooked.
grill
Steak can be like eaten medium rare, or like a chicken. Like, you can't
or
eat a
pork.
chicken.
Yeah.
Yeah, like you can pull a chicken or pork off the flat top or grill a few minutes early, and then boom, someone now has food poisoning, and not only is their night ruined, but you could potentially risk their life.
Not only that, not only um in the way it's prepared, but in the actual proper food handling prior to. Like, if you have food, raw food that's, or even cooked food that's in the danger zones. There's danger zones in safety. Like, trust me when I say I've been in the industry again for a long time, and I've learned and I've trained and I've done all these trainings, and I've been involved with a company that is, or companies that are very strict when it comes to food safety. I did openings with Darden, and in the openings we would host trainings, with our internal health department, our EcoSure, and they would come out and they would do classes and they would talk about the importance of washing your hands. Like, and these are simple things that you would think people know, like the why behind the what. I mean, it really only took me a Google search to look to see if Costa Rica required any food handlers. And the fact that they don't is kind of alarming. Like, you go to these places to vacation, and the last thing that you should worry about, or you need to worry about, is if they're properly educated or certified to handle your food. I will forever die on this hill. Maybe it's because it's the food safety in me that thankfully Darden and all the restaurants that I've worked at have kind of just nailed into my head and have opened my eyes to the reality of it, that you have to properly know how to handle your food. And it goes so much deeper than just handling the food. It goes as far as danger zones and temps, and whether or not, like, you have the proper equipment to hold this food, whether it's raw or cooked. You need to have proper equipment, like where their cooler's not working, where their freezer's not working. Like, a lot goes into it than just using the wrong tongs or not switching out your
And
gloves.
that is true. You worded it perfectly, man. All it takes is one simple, like, it doesn't even have to be carelessness. It's just one simple mistake, and something this horrifying could happen.
But unfortunately, in this situation, I think it was more than just one simple mistake, considering that the entire family got sick. I think that there's something deeper. And who knows, maybe it wasn't the restaurant that got them sick, because we will talk about it a little later into the podcast, that like how the timeline of food poisoning can start and how deep it goes and when do you start showing symptoms. But for now, I kind of want to just reiterate the fact that I think that we have to be very careful when we travel. So Fox News shared a an article with Francesca Page, a New York-based travel expert. She told Fox News that there are some safety factors that you have to consider when you go on vacation, and especially when you go out to eat on vacation. Moving forward, I think and I hope that this will kind of open up the American people's eyes, or not only American people, but people all over the world, and for them to take into consideration when they travel. So Ms. Page shares that travelers should prioritize cooked food by opting for freshly cooked dishes to avoid undercooked foods, especially seafood. Again, we reiterate that when you go to these places, the last thing on your mind, especially on vacation, is thinking whether or not these chefs or these restaurants that are local and have a wide variety of seafood options, since they're in a tropical location and a high touristy place, the last thing that you should be worrying about is whether or not they're properly handling your food. Again, I think that travelers should take that extra precaution, especially if it's seafood, shellfish, like clams and stuff, that you need to be very careful and aware of the dangers that can happen if these foods are not cooked properly or fully way through or handled in general, whether raw or
Like,
cooked.
don't eat stuff that you're not sure of. Like that's kind of my like my rule of thumb. Like if I've never heard of this food or like I've never have had it before, I'm not gonna just eat it from any.
But that's unfortunate, I think, because yeah, traveling, you're gonna experience, like, you want to travel and experience new things, and so maybe when I'm traveling to Costa Rica or Hawaii, I'm gonna want to try something new and something different, something that I can't obviously get in the States or wherever I'm from. So I think it's very unfortunate in that situation or in that circumstance. But I think that I hope that this is an eye opener for travelers, especially now with all these health issues that are going on. And I think after COVID, a lot has changed for the American people or for people in general, that, safety does come first, and they have to kind of consider the things that they wouldn't 20, 30 years ago when they would travel.
True. I mean, that is very true. Like to go back to what you said, like it's just sad because yeah, like you want to try new things, and it's like that's what the reason people vacation. They want to see new things, try new things, and it's
Experience
like
new things.
take the risk basically because I mean that is what we're doing. Anytime we eat anything, it's taking a risk.
Exactly. And another thing that Miss Francesca Page shared with Fox News Digital was to be aware of buffets and salad bars. Food left out for long periods of time, especially in humid environments, is more likely to harbor bacteria. And that's actually very true. Like, you don't think about it in the moment, and you think, shit, a buffet, like, hell yeah, like,
Like Golden Corrals, places like that. Yeah.
sure, like Golden Corral, but also like on cruises or all-inclusive resorts where you go on vacation, and these are the perfect opportunities for you to try so many different types of cuisines. And I think it's unfortunate that you have to be kind of very aware. I think after COVID, a lot changed, but I think this is a very good reminder for you guys to be aware of buffets and salad. I would think more salad bars, because if you're not taking care of like your vegetables, and if they're left out for too long, like, a lot can happen. I think that the danger zones are a very, very real thing. And I'll share a picture with you guys, the danger zones to be aware of, because I think it's very important that people know. And I think that this is why I say that everyone should work in the food service industry at least once in their lives, because this isn't just retail. You're not just shopping for clothes. Unfortunately, I think that there's a lot more that happens behind the apron, and that food service industry people are probably aware of, or the normal person wouldn't be if you're not. Like, there is so much that could happen in the span of your food from the time it's packed. If you guys haven't watched Poison, I think it's on Netflix. We watched it a few years ago, and it was truly eye-opening and very alarming. They also go into
A lot of detail,
a lot of detail as far as how serious,
like food contamination is, and like
yeah,
the real risk of like how small of a thing can cause like
a huge
nationwide
wave.
concern. Like, and they use several examples, which was very eye opening and very informative. And to kind of add to what you say, like it's not just as far as like working in the food industry, because you can work in the food industry and not know because you could be front of house. But I definitely do agree that like people should 100% educate themselves, because at the end of the day, this is stuff that we are putting into our bodies, and that's like like we need this to survive. It's not like we want to
Yeah.
eat, like we need like nourishment and eating and like to literally just survive.
And you would think that the people in charge of your food would know how to properly handle your food. Like we've said, it goes from the food processors, the people that supply your food, eventually into the people that handle your food at the restaurant from beginning to end. And then eventually the people that are not only preparing the food, but also serving it. Like, you have to be, it's a team effort. It's not just that this falls on one person. And I think, unfortunately, I think that if this is the case, and if this restaurant allegedly, again, we don't know for a fact that this restaurant is the blame, but if whoever is at fault, I hope that they, pay the price of having to pay for the consequences that, that they have made. It's very much so negligent, and I think that it's something that people need to be aware of because it can truly, truly happen to anyone. You don't have to be on vacation. It can happen at your local restaurant, at your local market, at, wherever. You guys need to take the proper food safety protocols.
And they definitely do need to because it's like you said, it can happen anywhere. It can happen at your favorite restaurant. It could happen. It could happen at your favorite restaurant. It could happen at like a random place you decide to stop by to eat to try something new. It could happen at like a big fancy restaurant that you go to. And like there's no exceptions here.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that this family was not
Being cheap out there.
exactly. Not only that, I don't think they were eating at a hole in the wall. They said that it was at. I mean, I looked at the menu. It's a very nice menu, and it's at a resort, so you would assume that it's high end, at least considering that the
Mm-hmm.
food that they serve. But again, you guys just have to be mindful, and I kind of want to, yeah, just be mindful about where you eat, how you eat. Just kind of always think twice about what you order and know before you go. Like,
Yeah, I mean, to add on to that, like know before you go. It's sad to say it like that, but I mean, you sometimes don't have to go as far as like making sure they do like food safety regulations and stuff like that. But like, a lot of people don't think about that. Like, only people who work in the restaurant industry know about like
yeah,
stuff like this. But like, if you don't know, like, it's a simple look at the reviews will tell you a lot about the places you got to eat. That's it. Like, because trust me,
I'm sure
people.
that this place, like if I could read the reviews, I'm sure they had
I
great
mean, I'm
reviews.
sure they do. I mean, maybe not now,
Well,
but like I said, I mean, I'm not saying like if you go to like a hotel, obviously, when you go to a hotel, you're expecting things to be clean. But like if you're going out, especially if you're trying something new, if you don't,
they have a 4.8-star review on
it's
Google.
not bad. But like I said, like you never, if you're going out to a restaurant you've never been to before, don't just only look at the menu. Look at the reviews. See, like I always try to look at the bad reviews and see if they make sense and if they're not just complaining to complain, because some people do that.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah,
you
some
gotta
people can
look
be
for like
just petty.
actual reviews that like that they're complaining about something, not just saying like,
The
oh,
service
my
was bad.
server was bad, my server was rude, I didn't like the food. Like, okay, you didn't like the food, but why? Stuff like that, just food for thought.
That being said, I kind of wanted to talk about food poisoning timeline. You hear food poisoning, food intoxication, basically the same thing. There are several ways that you can contract um, food poisoning or a foodborne illness, and there's different causes and different factors. There's also like different types. So, for example, a bacteria caused food poisoning can take anywhere between 1 hour or six to appear symptoms. So there's several things that can cause food poisoning: bacteria, viruses, toxins, and other agents. So, for example, bacteria. Certain bacteria, such as Salmonella, E. coli, Campylobacter, I think I'm saying that right, Listeria, can all contaminate food and cause
We're not
illness.
scientists, excuse our pronunciation.
Yeah. And those symptoms can happen anywhere between 1 to 6 hours from ingesting that food.
What are the side effects, or like what does that cause?
They all cause nausea, vomiting, diarrhea, stomach cramps, fever, headache, and weakness. Viruses like the norovirus, Hep A, can also contaminate food and cause foodborne illnesses. Those viruses can cause symptoms within 12 to 24 hours. So a lot of the times you're not going to see those symptoms right away. And at that point, that's where you kind of tend to rule out where, well, maybe it's not something that I ate yesterday. It could be something that I ate right now. When in fact, no, it probably is something. That's something that we need to kind of also take into consideration. Not all foodborne illnesses and not all food poisonings act right away, and not all act within 12 to 48 hours. So it's always best to kind of know where you eat and what you eat. At least track it for maybe your entire vacation, or 5 days prior kind of know what you eat and what and where you're eating.
Definitely. It sounds tedious, but it can definitely help pinpoint.
Save a life.
So yeah, even to that extreme, yeah, save a life and pinpoint what could actually have caused. Because like there are times like when my stomach doesn't feel right, and the first thing I think to myself is like, what did I eat? Because like my rule of thumb is like, what did I eat differently that I typically do? Because there have been times where I'm like, oh, I had this thing, like I had something that I typically don't have, and then like I find
It didn't sit.
myself fighting my demons later on.
No. So another type of food poisoning can be caused by toxins. So some bacteria like Staphylococcus produce toxins that can cause food poisoning even if the bacteria themselves are no longer present in the food. It's very confusing, guys, but very, I think, important to know.
It is. It's definitely like I feel like yes, if you have the time, educate yourself on all of them. If you don't and you just want to stay safe, definitely just not study, but like look into the most common ones, which are obviously you got your salmonella, you have your
E.
E. coli,
coli,
and like stuff like that. Yes,
hepatitis,
like
staphylococcal
stuff that
norovirus.
can be found literally like everywhere and are very common, like stuff like
Yeah.
that. Extreme
You're
things
obviously
are
probably not going to get seafood poisoning at McDonald's,
yeah, your fish
like,
fillet is safe. Don't worry.
well, we would hope.
Yeah.
Yeah, and unfortunately, these common symptoms of food poisoning are going to be nausea, vomiting, diarrhea, stomach cramps, fever, headache, and weakness. And I think that a lot also can take a lot apart from that, and apart from just your food, poor hygiene. So, not having the proper after preparing your food can play a role. Cross contamination, using the same utensils or cutting boards for raw and cooked foods. At every restaurant I've worked at, they've been very anal. We've have our local health department and our internal corporate health department come and visit the restaurant, and they look for things that normal people wouldn't.
I don't know about Cheddar's because I never went in the kitchen, but I know for Chipotle we have like different colored knives for like different
Yeah.
stuff. Like our green knives we use to cut all our veggies, like our lettuce, our onions, the jalapenos, the cilantro. And then the red knives is what they use for the meat. I don't know if they go as far as using different knives for both like steak and chicken. I'm assuming they do because you're supposed to. Well, are you supposed to when once it's cooked?
No, you can use the
Okay,
same color
probably.
knife.
Yeah, no, not like color knife, like the same knife to cook, like
Yeah.
cook chicken and cook steak.
Yeah. I think the only time
Okay.
it would differ is if it's like seafood.
Okay. Yeah, we don't sell seafood or Chipotle. Okay, well, yeah, I didn't want that far, but I know like that's like a measure that like Chipotle takes to make sure that a knife that's being used to cut like chicken or steak is not used to cut like the lettuce or like stuff like that.
Another thing that can cause foodborne illnesses or cross contamination can be improper storage. So we go back to whether or not your walk-in is working properly or your freezer's working properly, or whether or not how you store them. So many people don't know that there's actually a hierarchy that you have to follow when it comes to like fish, poultry, and meat, raw. And then as far as like your veggies and stuff, you have to make sure that stuff is stored at the proper height, 6 inches off the floor and stuff like that. Nothing can be on the floor in the freezer or on the floor in the walk-in. Like there's a lot that you have to take into consideration when it comes to properly storing your food. Whether in the restaurant or at home, you have to make sure that you follow the proper protocol. And it's sad that maybe many people don't know that there's stuff that you should not be doing in your home when it comes to food safety.
Absolutely. Like it's crazy the amount of times that we've bought like bananas or strawberries, and it's like from one day to the next is like they're either already like brown or like the strawberries are like going mold, and it's like
Yeah. You don't know what could have happened between the time that they were harvested to how they stored them at the grocery store, the market. It's always proper store. Yeah. Make sure that you're storing your food properly.
Absolutely.
Undercooking is a big one. Not cooking your food to a safe temperature is definitely something that we follow in the food service industry. Contaminated water. If you're drinking contaminated water, don't drink tap water wherever you go, especially in a foreign country.
I know we did
Just
it.
don't do
I
it.
know we
I wouldn't
did.
even do it here
We
in the
did it
States.
as kids, but that don't mean it's all is the same now. We didn't care back then. Back then it was eat or be eaten.
No, for real. All in all, food poisoning symptoms, again, can take anywhere from as early as 2 to 6 hours to appear, up to 24 to 48 hours to appear. It all just depends on what type of infection you came in contact with, whether it was bacteria, virus, or toxin related. Another thing that we have to kind of keep in mind is whether or not the individual is somebody who's a healthy individual who has a very good immune system, because obviously those types of people will probably be able to fight off food poisoning a little bit better, not all the time, but maybe just a little bit better than somebody who may be immunocompromised. So again, there's
Mm-hmm.
so much that you have to take into consideration, and there's so many factors that play a part in food safety. And so I think that at the end of the day, we're just trying to make you guys aware and educate you, whether or not you're in the food service industry, whether or not you have ever gotten food poisoning. Maybe now you have a little bit better of an understanding as to how or what happened and why.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if this is just me, but being in the food service industry, I am very careful about what I order, where I order it. I'm obviously not going to order shrimp at a burger joint, because you just don't know, like, the proper food handling is being taken place.
Yeah, you definitely. It's like you said. Like you have to be aware. You can't just order whatever like you're feeling at the moment. You need to be aware of like your surroundings, where you're at. Like it's like you said, you don't go to like a burger joint and order seafood. You don't go to an Italian place and order a burger. They have their specialties for a reason.
Yeah. So I think that, again, we are obviously at all not putting any blame onto this restaurant. We are just kind of stating facts from what we know at this point of the situation. And so unfortunately, this young man's life was lost. And again, it could probably have nothing to do with the restaurant or food poisoning, but it could also have played a big factor in whether or not this compromised his immune system, leading to his ultimate passing. And so we just want to make you guys very aware and kind of give you guys a little insight and educate you guys. This isn't always just going to be us, telling crazy stories, but also kind of being an educative purpose
Yeah,
podcast.
a lot. Like at the end of the day, yeah, like a life has been lost, and like whether you like it or not, or whether it sounds fucked up or not, like someone needs like I don't want to say like they need to pay, but yeah, they need to be held like accountable, responsible. Like it's like being a drunk driver. Like you didn't mean to do what you did. God forbid something happens. Like you didn't mean to do it, but you can't just get off by saying I'm sorry. I didn't mean to. Like it's yeah.
Yeah, I think that a lot of the times employees and people in the food service industry are not aware of how serious their actions can become if they don't properly handle their food
They're essential.
and themselves. Wash your hands.
I remember during COVID, in my hand, like I actually got like like my hands had rashes on them because like I would just like I washed them too
And then the
much.
water at Cheddar's was always coming out super
It
hot
wasn't because
in the
I
hand
don't think it was
sink.
because of the water. I think it was just like the constant like soap and like
Yeah.
rubbing, and it was yeah.
And the paper towels can be very
That
rough.
too.
During the winter, my hands were always paying the price for constantly washing my hands. If I ever walked out of the dining room, if I walked out of the kitchen into the dining room, every time I walked back in, I would wash my hands. Can you imagine how many times you're washing your hands?
Yeah, it's
Any time that you would, realistically, you're going to your tables every single turn. You're picking up food, you're picking up plates, you're taking them to dish. After that, you wash your hands. Like, people who are on top of hand washing wash their hands probably like 100 times a shift. Like, I'm not joking.
and it's always. I mean, it's definitely washing your hands, as annoying as it can be, it's a necessary like step. Like,
Yeah.
and you should always top off with hand sanitizer because that's what it's for. Like even if you think like, oh, I grabbed the plate like by the edge, I didn't get any food on me, I didn't touch anything. No, like
Other
the
people are breathing on that plate. They're eating on top of
not
it.
only that,
The
like
saliva.
bacteria doesn't just stay put. Like it doesn't like
Exactly.
it's not like, oh, I touched here, that's where it's gonna stay.
It's
No,
alive.
it's
Yeah.
gonna move everywhere, it's gonna multiply and spread all over. Like I understand why germaphobes are the way they are, but it's like
If you think
because
about it,
yeah,
yeah.
because it's true. Like it's like there are times where like when I catch myself thinking like a germaphobe, and it's like if I was to live this way again, no offense to y'all, if I was to live this way, I would be in like a constant state of panic and stress, because it's like if you're constantly thinking about it, like it doesn't matter how like what you do, there's always going to be germs everywhere. Like even simply like speaking, like when you speak and you spit by accident, like oh there go germs. Like
Unfortunately.
yeah, like I could not. Like respect to y'all for like living that way and staying clean. I appreciate you. You know, one more clean person in this world, but I could not. It would I would have more gray hairs than I already have.
I know. But I think that today's episode was definitely, hopefully, an eye opener for a lot of people. Obviously, we send our love and condolences out to the Gardner family. A young life was obviously lost way too soon, and I just hope and pray that they can get answers pretty quickly, the answers that they deserve, because I can't imagine the heartache that they're going through, not knowing how their youngest son passed away. So I hope and pray that God grants them peace and understanding throughout this very difficult time, and that in some way, shape, or form or another, that they can just get some type of
That they get
closure.
to yeah, that they get the closure they need, because at the end of the day, like it really is like
Unfortunate.
to live not knowing why you lost your son. It can definitely like haunt you.
Oh, absolutely. See, I've never been in that position, so I can't speak on it, but I can only imagine that your life is no longer the same. Your life changes from that moment forward. I hope that they just get the peace that they deserve as parents, um, and that whoever is responsible does have to be held accountable.
And learn their lesson.
Yeah. And just a reminder that if you guys are in the food service industry and you guys need to do your part to make sure that there is no negligence on your part in the restaurant, and
In general, like
just
that, like I understand like we're humans and stuff happens, but when you're in that position, like it really is a power position. Like when you're in a position of power like this, you need to be as damn near perfect as you can. Like I understand nobody is perfect, but you need to do everything in your power to
you have to do your
ensure
part.
that everything is done correctly.
That being said, I think we did talk a lot um, about food safety and stuff like that. And once again, I just want to wish my deepest condolences and love and prayers for the Gardner family,
Mm-hmm.
and that I hope that they get, answers soon, and that as painful as it may be until they get the autopsy results, that, God grants them the peace and understanding throughout this time. I hope you guys enjoyed today's episode. I know it's a little different than our normal episode so far. At the beginning of starting this podcast, we did share with you guys that we would talk about everything under the food service industry umbrella, and unfortunately, this does fall under it, and it's a very real thing. And I think that we wouldn't be doing our due diligence if we didn't bring awareness to this topic and share, our complete empathy with the Gardner family. But that being said, babe, do you have anything else you want to say?
I mean, no, I mean we're just about ready to clock out and
Yeah.
finish this lovely shift. So if you do work this weekend and this Friday, hope you have a great shift. I hope that everything runs smoothly. You don't have any annoying guests or any complaints. And most important, hope you make a bunch of money
And wash your hands.
and wash your hands.
Yeah. All right, y'all. Well, you know the drill. I hope you guys have a great Friday and an even better weekend. Don't forget to like, share, comment, subscribe. Let us know what you're drinking down below on YouTube in the comments. And share this episode with somebody that you love. Make sure you clock out, and we'll
See you next week, foodies.
foodies.